Wario Land 4 is dead. Pizza Tower killed it and turned it into a Sonic game. Now, yes, I understand that comparing Pizza Tower to Sonic is a little weird, since Wario Land 4 is like the inspiration for Pizza Tower, but I mean, there was that demo of Pizza Tower at a Sonic fan game showcase that even had a pseudo Sonic in it, but that's not the reason I'm making this video. And it also isn't just because Pizza Tower and Sonic are both focused on speed either. There's a lot more similarities in the design of these two games than you might expect. But first, we should probably establish what we're actually looking for when it comes to... I should probably clarify that this is only about the classic 2D Sonic games. Modern 3D Sonic games have a completely different design thing going on, and also that whole third dimension malarkey, which Pizza is notoriously lacking. So what are the key design elements of Sonic? Well, I already covered this exact question in my last video, so if you really want to know, you gotta check out the previous video, idiot. But I'll quickly summarize it. One is risk versus reward gameplay. This comes from the multi-layered level design of Sonic. It's riskier to play the higher paths, but they're much faster than the lower ones are. It's a constant balance of how much you're willing to risk to keep going top speed, and the moment you fail, you're slowed to a crawl. Two is exploration. Sonic games are deceptively big, so the game wants you to explore to find the fastest way through the level. So your first playthrough is slower while you learn the layout of the stage, and then your next playthrough you can try to enact your mischievous speed plot. And this way you're encouraged to play the same level repeatedly to get a faster time. Which brings us to 3. Speed, obviously. Of course I've included speed on the list in my previous video. You can't prove otherwise. Speed is your constant reward and motivation in the game. You want to go fast, and it feels good when you do. Now, keep these elements in mind as we move forward. I'll be referring back to them as we talk about how Pizza Tower compares to Wario Land 4. This is relevant, trust me. You see, there's a lot of similarities between these two, obviously, but it's actually the differences that I find most interesting, because Wario Land 4 is very clearly not like Sonic at all. As much as is Wario Nintendo's secret Sonic game would have been a much better video title. But this means that every single change that Pizza Tower made from the Wario formula brought it closer and closer to the design of Sonic. And nothing makes that more clear than the differences with one of the most unique aspects of Wario Land. Compared to Wario Land 4, Pizza Tower actually has more transformations. Yet the way that these are designed and the places where they're used make them feel drastically less intrusive, which you can actually see is a change that happened over time thanks to Pizza Tower's fairly public development. Currently, most transformations have a very clear spot where you get the transformation from, and then a very clear spot later in the level to remove it. This designates a concise section of area where you're intended to use this transformation to your own benefit. But in earlier demos, transformations functioned much more like Wario Land, where more enemies were able to transform you just by hitting you, and it would act more like a punishment most of the time. Like the pizza wizards being able to turn you into the knight, which is a combination of words that really makes me realize how stupid I sound when I say these things sometimes. Which, oh no, I'm not gonna, okay. But having the knight transformations happen whenever you get hit by these guys was intentionally painfully slow. Though, unlike the final game, you didn't need to reach a priest to get rid of it. Simply sliding down a slope into a wall would get rid of the knight form. Bombs used to be a transformation. They'd force you to run around with no control until the bomb explodes in your hands. The ball transformation used to work exactly like Wario Land 4, where you could hold down on a slope to slide on it, and when you got to the bottom, you'd automatically roll into the ball. And overall, every transformation was slower back then. The knight moved slower and forced you to stop to try to stab enemies. When you get burnt on lava, which is a transformation technically, There was a much longer animation, which I personally found incredibly frustrating when I first played a demo with it. The fire mouth transformation didn't let you dash, instead you would just shoot out fireballs. I could go on and on, but I think you get the idea. This mechanic of Wario Land 4 was an incredibly unique system for a slow, methodical, semi-puzzle-based platformer where most of the time these transformations would slow you down, but occasionally you'd have to think out of the box and use the special effects of these forms to your advantage when solving puzzles. But Pizza Tower realized that this design just didn't mesh well with the direction that the game was leaning in. Having something which could really only either slow you down or help you solve a puzzle in a game that was leaning much more into exhilarating, speedy movement wouldn't work. And so many planned transformations were scrapped, many of the existing ones were sped up, and those that still felt a little slow were put into incredibly controlled short sections, turning the transformation mechanic into something that challenges the player to keep up their speed with a new moveset. In the final game, there's only really one enemy left who still keeps the old idea of transformations: the pepperoni things. They're the only common enemy with the ability to transform Peppino, and that's probably because they're nowhere near as slow as the others. Getting hit by them is already pretty hard to do, but even then, the ball transformation is almost never slower than just the hit stun of any other enemy. The few other enemies that can transform you like this really only appear in sections where you're supposed to get the transformation from them, meaning they act almost the same as every other power-up station, except for the 1 or 2 times the game intentionally challenges you to avoid them. Now, ultimately, all this does to make Pizza Tower more like the Sonic game is lessen the focus of a mechanic that was nothing like Sonic. Sonic games have their bubble power-ups, but at that point we might be stretching to find similarities outside of just showing that Pizza Tower is focused more on speed than Wario Land is. But thankfully, there's another mechanic from Wario Land 4 that, with a little tweaking in Pizza Tower, is incredibly similar to Sonic. And that's the way that each stage is broken up into 2. Wario and Pizza Tower share the same level structure, where the first half of the stage is slow. You slowly make your way around, exploring as much as you can, keeping in mind the general layout of the stage in preparation for Phase 2. And Phase 2 is the second half of the stage, when there's a giant timer on your screen and you panic and run as fast as you can, trying to get back to the entrance. Already, this ties back to Sonic with separating exploration into the first phase and speed into the second. However, Wario Land 4 isn't really designed for you to go through the first half of the stage quickly. Alright. Pizza Tower, on the other hand, has leaned far more heavily into speed, allowing the player to not only go quickly when they need to, but also when they want to.
You're not going fast enough. Faster, go faster, faster. Am I not going fast enough? Hurry, I'm doing too slow? Go faster. I feel like I'm going wicked fast.
Much like with Sonic, when you first play a level in Pizza Tower, you'll be going through it slowly, but on repeat attempts of the stage, you're able to speed around it a lot more. This is on top of the fact that once you get to pizza time, you'll already know most of the layout of the stage, and you're now forced to go back through it as quickly as possible, meaning that the idea of replaying a stage to try to go through it quickly is integrated into the base gameplay right from the get-go. It makes me curious if combining your first and second playthrough of a level into one run like this is a natural progression of the goal of Sonic games, or simply a different solution to the same problem, which ties us back into the original question: is Pizza Tower a good Sonic game? Well, there's actually one last major element of Sonic games that I have yet to point out in Pizza Tower. Obviously, the general idea of risk versus reward is in Pizza Tower. It's a video game that exists, but it's the specific style of risk-reward that Sonic games have that creates some issues here. As I said earlier, top path fast, but also hard. If you suck at game, fall down to slow path, which isn't in Pizza Tower. The closest equivalent I could point to is when you need to P-rank a level in Pizza Tower, which requires you to never lose your combo while doing nearly everything there is to do in the level. That gives you a lot more to consider on how far you can push your combo without actually losing it entirely. But what Sonic has is essentially more like a built-in difficulty adjustment, where the best players can go on the fastest path, but those who aren't as good yet can still make their way through the level much more slowly on the easier paths. And your main encouragement for getting better at the game is so that you can go faster through each stage. And to a certain degree, this is in Pizza Tower. Okay. No stage in Pizza Tower is impossible. The difficulty from each stage just depends on how high of a rank you want to get. But again, despite ending up at a very similar effect of difficulty depending on how fast you want to go, the way that this is achieved is quite different, which is ultimately how all the design aspects these games share are like. They're similar in the end, but the means that got them there are so different. Is it really close enough to consider Pizza Tower a Sonic game? I personally don't think so. Why do I keep— It may seem a little unsatisfying to come to such an expected answer when there were so many unexpected similarities between the two games, but I can't in good faith just act like the differences and the details don't matter. No. Of course, there's many conflicting ideas on what makes a Sonic game a Sonic game. So if your criteria is just, do you go fast? Then in that regard, it has everything you want from a Sonic game. Oh my god. No. That count. That's good. Whatever. Screw it. Good enough. Ship it and clip it and take it to the bank and turn it into 20s. My brain is just turned into mush by this point. So apologies, I don't really know how to wrap this one up, to be honest. I'll just say, hopefully you're just like me and thought it was fun just to analyze some similar design ideas from 3 separate games. And if that's you, then stop being so much like me. You will not enjoy it.